right, section 3.3, public goods and externalities. Describe and provide examples of 4 types of goods and then define negative and positive externalities. Learning objective 1 is a little bit confusing just because, again, there's new vocabulary words that you may not be familiar with and we need to figure out how they work in our language, and we will. So far in the book we've been talking mostly about private goods like tacos, pizzas, cell phone service. Other categories of goods exist. At the other extreme are public goods with various categories in between, including natural monopoly goods and open access goods. So let's talk through 4 different types of goods: private, public, natural monopoly, and open access. And then we need to sort of put them into a table to see how they all relate. Private goods. This is what we've talked about the most. They have 2 very important features. They are called what's rival in consumption. That means the amount consumed by one person is usually unavailable for others to consume. For instance, sharing a pizza. If you're sharing a pizza with a friend, whatever piece they eat, you cannot eat because it's in their belly. So I think of the word rival in sports, and when you are a rival with another team, you fight for the win, right? So private goods are rival, you're fighting for the use of them, and that helps me remember. And then exclusive, suppliers can easily exclude those who don't pay. If you don't have money for the pizza, the Little Caesars will not give it to you, if that makes sense. Public goods. Examples are National Defense, Centers for Disease Control, Neighborhood Mosquito Control Program, etc. Public goods are non-rival in consumption, so you do not have to fight with somebody over their use. National defense, okay, the Army. It's available for the entire country. One person's benefit does not reduce the amount available to others. You do not have to fight for it. And public goods are non-exclusive. So once the Army is produced, it's available for all to use. The safety the Army provides is available to everybody, regardless if you're paying or if you're not. Taxes pay for the Army, and not everybody pays taxes. In fact, if you don't work, you don't pay taxes. But the Army is available to protect you. Once the good is produced, the marginal cost of providing the good to an additional consumer is 0. Also, I want to talk about free riders. Actually, that'll be right up here. Government provides public goods and funds them through enforced taxation. Anybody who's working has to pay taxes. Even though at the end of the chapter we're going to learn that if you don't make a certain amount of money, you don't have to pay taxes, but that is another subject. Sometimes nonprofit agencies also provide public goods, funding them through charitable contributions and other revenue sources. But what's not on the slide that I want to bring up is free riders. So, for example, if a private firm were to spray a neighborhood for mosquitoes, that's something that happens up north quite often because mosquitoes are awful, all of the households in the neighborhood would benefit. However, many households might not be willing to pay, figuring that they will still benefit from the spraying, and those households are called free riders because they're not paying, they're riding on the coattails of what you paid for. Moving on. This video is on your playlist to be watched after 3.3. Okay, natural monopoly goods. So our example of natural monopoly goods are TV signals or radio signals, the subway system. So some goods are non-rival but exclusive. So you don't have to fight for their use, but you do have to pay. All right, so TV signals are non-rival in consumption because there's enough for everybody to use. And then TV is exclusive by making viewers pay for the show either through commercials or by charging households through cable or pay-per-view. Subway cars. An additional passenger can ride a subway without reducing the benefits to other riders, of course, until the cars become overcrowded. And then the last example is open access goods. An example of an open access good would be fish in the ocean, deer out in the woods, game and wildlife. Fish in the ocean are rival because every fish caught is not available for others to catch, like the pizza. So you have to fight over the use of a fish. Deer are rival because if a deer is killed, it's not available for others to kill. But game and wildlife are non-exclusive in that it would be costly or impossible for a private firm to prevent access to them. Everybody can access game and wildlife. Granted, there are restrictions or regulations on open access goods to prevent renewable resources from being depleted. If we didn't have restrictions on how many deer you were allowed to kill in a season or how many fish you were allowed to catch during the day, there's a chance that all the fish or all the deer would be depleted and no one would be able to use them. And again, this video is on your playlist. Okay, this puts everything in a nice chart. So we have pizza, which is private. Pizza is rival and exclusive. Okay, fish, also rival, but non-exclusive. Come over here to natural monopolies, like TV signals, radio signals. They are non-rival, but they are exclusive. You have to pay for them. And then public goods. They are non-rival, available to everybody, and non-exclusive. Okay, next learning objective, externalities. Externalities are when markets affect third parties and those not directly involved in the production of the product. Those are externalities. For example, let's see, I'll just read the paragraph that's in yellow up there. But rivers in Jakarta, Indonesia are dead, killed by acid, alcohol, and oil. Some coral reefs in the South Pacific have been ripped apart by dynamite fishing. The air in some U.S. cities does not meet health standards. These are all examples of externalities, and these are actually all examples of negative externalities, which are byproducts of production and consumption. We do have examples of positive externalities. For example, if you get vaccinated, you reduce your chances of contracting the disease. However, you also reduce the chances that others will catch it from you, so they will benefit too. The private sector, operating on its own, produces too many negative externalities and too few positive externalities. Government intervenes in the market to improve the outcomes. So let's talk specifically about negative externalities. They're generally the byproduct of production or consumption that imposes costs on third parties. The byproducts are usually pollution, unwanted products of something that you're making. A renewable resource can be used indefinitely if it's used conservatively. Renewable resources being trees, air, water. These can all be used indefinitely if you are conservative with them. Polluters of open access resources tend to ignore the impact of their pollution on other people and on the resource's ability to renew itself. That's why we have government restrictions to reduce negative externalities. The EPA tries to help. Negative externalities are unwanted, and the government is there to try to prevent them from occurring. Positive externalities are beneficial. They occur when the byproduct of consumption or production benefits third parties. Governments aim to increase the level of production beyond what would be chosen privately. There's a paragraph in the book that talks about education, and that's what I'm going to read through now. It might all be summarized here, but I'm going to go straight to the book so I don't miss anything. I'm on page 81 if you've got a book in front of you. All right, so when there are positive externalities, governments aim to increase the level of production beyond what would be chosen privately. So I'm going to come up here to education. For example, education generates positive externalities. Society as a whole benefits from education. Those who acquire more education become better citizens. They can read road signs. They can become more productive workers who are better able to support themselves and their families. Educated people also are less likely to require public assistance or to resort to violent crime for income. Thus, education benefits those getting the education, but more importantly, it also confers benefits on others. So that's a positive externality. It benefits you who's gaining the education, but it also benefits the economy by producing more responsible citizens. And here is your last video, and it's on your playlist. And we're done. That was an easy one today.